Welcome back to Straight Out the Jungle, a Field of 68 affiliate podcast. We're here to talk about all things Auburn Tigers basketball. It was a rough week for the Tigers this weekend. They fell to Alabama 96-92, and then just a few nights ago, they fell to Vanderbilt 84-76. Both of those games inside Neville Arena Rep for the first time in a while. The Tigers have dropped back-to-back ones at home.
Yeah, first time falling twice in a row at home since 2021. First time since 2017 having a crowd at Neville, and we can get into the crowd against Vandy because there wasn't much of one compared to what Auburn has been enjoying and expecting. But that's nothing to blame. Look, these are two really good teams, and I thought against Alabama, Auburn played well enough to win that game, but a couple defensive lapses and some really tough made baskets from Alabama. That's a tough loss, but it's a loss you can live with. Vanderbilt, potentially even a better team than Alabama, but the annoying thing for Auburn, the frustrating thing rather, is just how poor they played for most of the game. Against Alabama, there was some poor defense, but there was a lot of good stuff. Against Vanderbilt, felt like most of that good stuff didn't happen until the last 10 minutes, and it was far too little, too late in that one.
Yeah, it really did. And we'll go into the rotations and how I think that affected the game. But you're right. I never thought Auburn really looked bad against Alabama. Defensively, they were poor and they left a ton to be desired. But everybody is against Alabama, also a team that we talked about, in the podcast before the game. They were going to get their points up. They were going to get their shots up. It was a matter of if you could keep up. I thought the Tigers did a tremendous job of doing that, but in the end, it just wasn't enough. I think the game kind of got away from them late. They really just couldn't defend the last 5-6 minutes of the game, and it showed. And I think the Tigers deserved um, better result in that one. I think that defensively, you can't ignore the laps defensively, but I do think they might have been the better team on Saturday, and that just was not the case. Tuesday night, Vanderbilt, I thought, completely outplayed Auburn in almost every category imaginable, and it showed that our top 20 team, Tyler Tanner, does what he does. Jalen Washington, McLaughlin, those two dudes, absolutely huge for Vanderbilt. And so the Commodores, yeah, showed why they're a top 20 team and showed Auburn that they had some things to figure out, and they had some things to figure out really, really quickly.
Yeah, I thought something that was really interesting about that Vanderbilt game, and we'll look at it statistically. Auburn, 8 turnovers to Vanderbilt, 7. You'll take that. Auburn out-rebounded Vandy, 36 boards to 27. In those kind of stats, those are two I feel like you look at a lot if you're Auburn, is rebounding and turnovers, and you feel like if you can break even on those or have a lead on those, which to me they did against Vanderbilt. You lose the turnover battle by 1, you win the rebounding margin, you should feel good about it. And yet, even with that, it felt like Auburn was always closer than they even should have been. Now, in the last 10 minutes or so, Auburn, I thought, figured something out, played good basketball, cut the lead to 4. So Hod Pettiford had a really, really good game. And the biggest difference to me in this one, aside from some defensive lapses, was that Auburn did not get it from Keyshawn Hall. And we have not said that a lot this weekend. He scored 24 against Alabama, and it wasn't a very good 24. He scored 13 against Vanderbilt, and it was a rough 13. He did not have a good night. And I think if you're Auburn, that's a difference, at least in terms of you don't want to pin a loss on a single player. You can't. You never can. But when your best player isn't performing, that brings the team down. 3 for 13 from the field when the rest of your team shoots reasonably efficiently really is going to bring you down. And that's why, and the big story in Vandy, Keyshawn Hall sat for the last 12 and a half minutes. Break that down.
Well, yeah, Stephen Pearl, and he was very honest in his post-game press conference. I went with the 5 guys on the floor that I thought were going to win us the game, gave us the best chance of winning the game. And I think from an outside perspective, it's like, wow, no Key Hall, that's absolutely absurd. But if you look at the trends of the game, I think it was a call that had to be made. He was 3 of 13, 3 of 5 from 3-point range. So the only shots he made were from outside the arc. We know that Keyshawn Hall loves to get downhill and gets to the free throw line. 0 of 8 from inside from 2 in only 5 free throws. So when the whistle's not going your way and you're not making those shots inside, I feel like Key Hall's game is really limited because that's what he is. And when you can't succeed with the game that he has, there's not he is a three-dimensional scorer, 100%. But when he's not getting that whistle and he's not scoring inside, you've taken away 2 of the ways that he really likes to score. And basically it's another player for Auburn that I think is a non-factor in this game. And so taking him out and I think rolling with the guys he did, I really like what Sebastian Williams-Adams was doing down the stretch. Kevin Overton, he ended up fouling out, but I thought he was efficient. And Sahad Pettiford is finally finding a little something wasn't great from three against Vandy, was pretty solid against Bama, but Todd Pettiford is heating up, and I think it's a real shame because we've talked about, when is Todd Pettiford going to step up his game? Was he going to shoot the ball better? And we knew it had to be soon, and we thought it might come against Alabama because that's the kind of game that really gets Todd Pettiford going, and it did. And so you think when Auburn finally gets Todd Pettiford back from last year, they're going to find something new. Well, they got him back. I would say not too. You want to measure at her from still not to the measure of where he was last year. If he looks, but he's finally scoring the ball with a little bit more efficiency. And so for Tahad to have two 20-plus point performances, where he shot the ball well from the field and to lose both of them, I think that's just something that Auburn fans were not expecting, and probably Stephen Pearl wasn't expecting either, because he was, admittedly he said before the Alabama game, when Taha gets going, this team will find something new, and unfortunately Taha got going, and it didn't really translate to wins, which I think is frustrating for for us, for fans, and for Coach Pearl and the staff, I'm sure.
Yeah. Tahad's 4 best games this season, interestingly, Arizona, Georgia, and then I would say these last 2, Alabama and Vanderbilt, all have been losses. And in all of those except Arizona, to me, these are not empty stats. Tahad is giving you the best opportunity to win. Something that stands out to me about Keyshawn Hall that stands out in both of these games, and part of the reason I feel like they're kind of poor games from him, a lot to break down defensively. Didn't think he played very good defense in either of them. But the other thing that he was doing so well at the start of the year, and even at the start of SEC play, was rebounding. Just 3 rebounds against Vanderbilt and Alabama. That is something that from a guy who's going to be your, 3 or 4 somewhere in there, who can rebound the ball really well. You want to see a little bit more of that. So, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he responds to the benching. He seems to always have a good attitude, even when Auburn wasn't winning games. He said, "Look, the wins are going to come." Seems like a guy who is settled, but it can be hard to sit there on the bench for 12 and a half minutes. And
Especially 12 and a half minutes when your team is sitting down in 15 at home with a top 25 opponent, and your fans are leaving the building.
yeah, and so I think that's it's going to be very interesting to see how Keyshawn Hall responds to that. But I'm excited to see that. We've talked all year about the ceiling for this team feels endless, but you also see, especially in that first half against Vandy, just how low the floor can be. And guys on this team, I think, you've got guys on this team that are ceiling raisers and that can be great, but the team needs to find a way to raise that floor and not play down. And the thing with Vanderbilt and Alabama is that you're not playing down to competition. You're playing down to good teams, and you can beat good teams. You've beaten Florida. You've beaten St. John's. There are good teams out there that you can beat. And just right when Auburn 3 games ago before Tennessee felt like they had all the momentum, we were saying this team can finish top 4 in the SEC. Now they're below 500 in conference play, fighting to stay top 8, which is a big difference. That's the difference between a bye and no bye in the tournament. And you still feel comfortable that this team is going to make the NCAA tournament. You still feel like this can be a good team, but they have got to figure some things out. They shot the ball fine against Vanderbilt again outside of Keyshawn Hall. They shot the ball less from deep, which was an argument for that Alabama game. Was that they shot too many threes. And Stephen Pearl said after Alabama, "I'm not worried about this offense. You score 92, you should win." And I think that's fair. But then you see some of them come back against Vanderbilt, and they, as much as they have found different ways to win games, they have also, to me, found different ways to lose games.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting thing to look at in Alabama and Vanderbilt. Bama, you play great on offense, aside from deep. You score 92 points, feel like you should win. Vandy, your offense is slow all game until you need it, and then it's too late. And you get some controversial calls, and you get some things that don't go your way, but great teams work past that.
Yeah, and I think another thing is other teams are hitting really timely shots, and
Absolutely.
and Auburn is not hitting those timely shots with the same respect that the other teams are. Alabama, a few shots come to mind. The Aiden Holloway 4-point play that felt like a kill shot, and then a couple guys from Vanderbilt who are not known to hurt you from three, but Galen Washington, Devin McLaughlin, Chandler Bang, those guys, 6 to 7 from three, and there were some big shots down the stretch from all three of those dudes. And, Auburn just didn't find that. And going back sort of to the rotation discussion, they were really playing five dudes for the last 12 minutes of the game. I know Simon Walker came in for a few minutes, Philip Jovich for a few minutes. but it was mostly 5 guys out on the floor and occasionally a 6-man rotation. Auburn's depth, I think, from the start of the season to right now has just fallen off tremendously. And part of it's guys not panning out the way they thought. Part of it's injuries, but Auburn has to find a way to look past that. So I think you're sitting here and you're getting Boston the inside, and you're wondering how many minutes would Emeka Okporo be playing in this game. And Tahad's having to go for 36 minutes. Caden Magwood, why can't he play? And Abdul Bashir, it's kind of guys that we thought would pan out to this point in the season really haven't happened. And so I think the biggest issue for the Tigers to figure out right now is the issue of rotation. Who's going to get these minutes? Where are these minutes going to go? Because you have a lot of them to give out and not a lot of players to take them at this point, right?
Yeah, one positive sign that I think Auburn fans could take from the Vanderbilt game, not in terms of how it went, but just rotation. Auburn seems to be getting closer to an 8-man rotation. Simon Walker played, and he played, to me, not more significant minutes than Blake Michalek had been playing.
He played a 4, so about the same amount.
But seeing him play, seeing Kevin Overton confidently take the ball up at the 1, Tahad gets some rest. Maybe that's a difference maker in how well he can play, is that when he's in, he can go speed.
It's crazy he still went 36 minutes.
He did.
Yeah.
But I think Auburn fans have kind of been really hoping that they would get a solidified 8th dude on the bench. Maybe Simon Walker will be that. Maybe he won't. I think Auburn fans should be very satisfied that Stephen Pearl is trying new things, because that was for a long time. I think people had this problem with Bruce on the other end, was that he was going to play 9 guys. Kind of no matter who he had, he trusted his bench. Some people thought too much. And so the question for coaches often is, okay, when are we going to try something new? You can't say that Stephen Pearl hasn't tried new things. And to me, that is a good sign. That's a sign of a mature coach. That's a sign of a mature team that is willing to go out and try new things. And again, not to be the eternal optimist, this team has shown you how good they can be. They just have also shown you that they can be very so wildly inconsistent. I don't think I have seen a team whose highs are as high as they are. You think about the runs that they went on against Florida early in that game, and whose lows are as low as they are. Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, times against Georgia, Missouri. It's interesting. And this is a team who absolutely, you look at the resume today and you say, really probably only 2 or 3 losses that they shouldn't have, a win or 2 that they also shouldn't have. I think you look at where St. John's and where Florida are, you say those are big wins. Georgia lost, give or take, probably shouldn't have lost to Missouri, and probably shouldn't lose to Vandy at home. And otherwise, they've kind of been what the expectation is. It's come in different ways, I feel like, than people thought it would.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. They've picked up some wins that maybe they didn't expect to pick up, and they picked up some losses they didn't expect to pick up, which in terms of how many games they're winning, this is about where we thought. I think probably a win or 2 more at this point.
Yeah.
It would be,
Especially in conference.
would be correct to expectations. Like you want to win that Georgia game. You probably want to win that A&M game. Looking back on it,
For sure.
I mean, A&M just fell at home to Missouri, and honestly, you could win the Missouri game as well. So
Sure.
a few games, obviously in the SEC, you're not going to win every game you should, and you're not going to lose every game you should. That's just kind of the reality of it. But in terms of expectations, this is about where they are. This is another discussion I want to get to, right if you don't mind a quick tangent. But it's I think the home support for Auburn has been fickle. I don't know if that's the right word. I think, but
That's a fair.
it has been, Auburn ever since my time here. You couldn't go to a basketball game as a student unless you were in line 8 hours before, and for some games 3 days before. And I'm getting to the game on Tuesday against Vanderbilt, and they're letting students in, and there's probably like 100 people in line, like waiting to get in. And it's like, wow, I've never seen it like that. And it's against a top 20 team, in Vanderbilt. And they left, a lot of them left early too, when the game was still in question. So I think a frustrating thing is, I think, sort of the media narratives and the fan narratives have started to sort of turn and flee from this Auburn basketball team, when I think that's just it's very premature, because this team has such good talent and has incredible potential. What do you think about that?
So I'll go back one more year at Auburn, because I've been here one year longer. My freshman year, the 2023 team, to be very similar to this team, an inconsistent team, a team that is newly gelling, They had some big wins, they had some tough losses, and they showed you all of that in the second round game against Houston, where they led at the half and then had an awful second half. That team, very, very similar to me, to this team. That was some of the best student section that I experienced. And some of that is bright-eyed freshmen getting in and me being overwhelmed by this environment that I haven't been in before. But some of that I think is real. And I think you get some drop off because the expectation has gone up, and that is fair. And listen, nobody should be coming after the fans that are there. The fans that show up have been great, and
Yeah.
and the students that are there are loud. And the student section to me is not the weakest point. There,
No.
I would like to see it be better. I was talking with JJ Jackson about this during the game, and you've heard the nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make sense, right? If nobody goes there, it's not crowded.
Exactly.
I think you get that a little bit with the student section. Nobody wants to go and sit in line for 8 hours to watch a team that's a little bit disappointing.
And I think,
And I'm not going to blame anybody for
yeah,
that. People now people don't realize how
they didn't see it soon.
to get in.
Yeah, they don't have to. I texted my friend that said, if any of y'all want to go to the game, y'all could
We're
watch
10 minutes from tip, and they did a seat.
exactly. Yeah, which is something that I have never witnessed in my time here
No.
as a student, and now we are, which is just it's crazy because this is probably the worst team that we've had or I've had, I guess, since I've been here, and they're still a very good basketball team.
They are.
Like this is a team that, as of right now, is going to play in the NCAA tournament. Which before Bruce Pearl, that wasn't even happening.
The fact that that is the bar is great.
It is.
And we can't just sit there and say, okay, what did Auburn used to be, and now the bar is here. You want to always keep getting better and
Yeah.
growing. But there are seasons that are going to be tough. This is so similar to 2023. The 2022 team outside of the NCAA tournament was phenomenal. They set records. They did things at Auburn nobody had ever done. And you lose two of your best players in program history in Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler, and it takes a second to get that back. And to me, this team might not have as much to build on as 2023 in terms of guys that are going to return next season, but they're in a very similar spot. A roster that has to gel. Like you've just things have to happen. And so to fans outside of the student section, because that's to me has been much weaker, is not just the student section. You've still got a good core of support in there. Man, the arena outside of that, the season ticket holders and the fans that have the nice seats. And this is not to come after anybody, but you have got to show up to the games because I don't. You can't, part of what has made Auburn so special, and this is true of most great basketball teams, but I think it is. We love it at Auburn, and we've said it. And we've come after Alabama the last 5 years about having an empty arena. Having it's in the intro video, right? This is the loudest 9,121 you'll see anywhere. Auburn feeds off their home crowd more than any team in the country. You can't feed off a home crowd that's not there and that isn't in it. And Auburn fans love Auburn. I am begging them to love a team that's not awesome and to come out and support because that makes that team's ceiling so much higher.
Yeah. So and it is a ramp. It's a bit of a soapbox, and it's not like the showing up of the fans is not going to determine the success of the Auburn basketball team. But I think it does a great bit for the confidence in the team, and we've seen how much Auburn has played off them in the past, and it's just one of the aspects to this team that I think has not been the same. I know there's a great interaction with the student section, but I think with just the arena as a whole, hasn't been the same. But let's move past it and let's look to this upcoming week for Auburn basketball. They start with a trip to Arkansas on Saturday. And in my opinion, after what Auburn did to Arkansas in Neville Arena a few weeks ago, going to Fayetteville to play that team who was very hot, that's a rough matchup.
It's a scary game. Positive is Auburn blew them out. Yeah, the negative is Auburn is historically not very good at Walton Arena. Auburn blew them out. It's an angry Arkansas team that is, we've talked about it, either the most or the second most talented team in the SEC.
Mhm.
And you're playing John Calipari.
Yeah.
That is, it is a tough game. And man, Auburn needs it right now more than they have at any point in the season. 3-game skid. You need to go 5-4, or excuse me, 4-3 over your next 7 to finish 500 in conference. This is similar to the Florida game, a make or break game. And if you win it, man, that is amazing. And if you lose it, boy, it gets even tougher.
And it seems to be that every game on the schedule now increases with importance as it comes to it. So I think I can recall saying on this podcast when Auburn was playing Arkansas the first time, this is the biggest game of our season. And then when they were playing, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Florida, like This is the biggest game of their season. And now here we come. It's 3 weeks later. It'll be Valentine's Day when they take on number 21 Arkansas. Probably the biggest game of their season.
It is.
And just in terms of how high the stakes are, and in the parity of the league, right in that middle, especially a lot of teams are sitting around 500, a few games above, a few games below. A lot can change. And I think Auburn's schedule is actually pretty favorable. You have Arkansas, Kentucky, and Bama. I think those are three games where you can probably pick out a win. And then you also have Oklahoma, Ole Miss, who you beat on the road, and then LSU at home and Mississippi State, which I think Auburn should really be looking to win all four of those.
Auburn should win all four of those. Mississippi State scares me a little bit. Auburn is not great in Starkville. I've seen really good Auburn teams lose in Starkville. But I think you're right. You look at this and you say, okay, you should go 4-3, and you should be able to steal one against Alabama, Arkansas, or Kentucky. The one of those that I would circle is Kentucky. You get Kentucky at home, and I think even though they're ranked and even though the talent is really high, Kentucky has shown
I think Kentucky is a similar team to Auburn, where they've seen those
their floor is higher, but
and it's shown that pretty brutal floor. So I mean, yeah, I think you've been thinking for a lot on
Deal West
Saturday night circle at Neville Arena. The atmosphere for the Alabama game was incredible. Right, I would say that was one of the most incredible environments I have been in person for, especially just because of the nature of I think Alabama's the makeup of their roster. One, people here don't like Nate Oates. They don't really like Aiden Holloway anymore. No, and they certainly, I can tell you, they certainly do not like Charles Bediako. That might be the loudest I've heard the arena chant something collectively when he was at free throw line. Like I almost felt bad for him. Like it was that like it's like wow, yeah, that's like I felt it in my chest. And so I really do feel as though it will be a similar environment versus Kentucky, and I think Auburn plays so well, especially in the first half, off that environment. If they throw a quick punch against Kentucky, and this is 3 games away, so I don't want to sit on it too long, but that's the one that I would circle for sure as well.
it's a long road, and as much as we're saying they should go 4-3, could go 5-2, it could flip on its head. I think I would be amazed if Auburn missed the NCAA tournament this year, but I can absolutely see the path to it happening. At the same time, the wins are there. Like the games to beat good teams and get up to a 6 seed are there. It's hard.
Yeah.
The road is long, but that's the blessing and the curse of being in the SEC is you get the opportunity to beat good teams. That also means that every team you play is going to be pretty good. So there's a lot of season left, but we are really getting down to it here. And this team has got to prove some things. And it's what we said before the Tennessee game, that this team has proven some things, but they've got some more to prove. You drop 3 in a row, and they're all to good teams. They are all to very good teams. Tennessee, Vandy, Alabama, all good teams. But good teams, great teams, should beat some good teams sometimes. And that's, to me, where Auburn still has to prove it the rest of the way.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, the Tigers and the Hogs face off at 7 p.m. on Valentine's Day. That game at Bud Walton Arena. Tigers looking to take down number 21 Arkansas for the second time this season. That's going to do it for this episode of Straight Out the Jungle. We will have live updates, but obviously not